Alright, so I want to start off by asking you guys a question. Think of like technology or an invention that you cannot live without, that you feel like you cannot live without. And what are some of the things that you think you can't live without? Yes.
My phone.
Why can't you live without it?
Because I'm on it.
Is it
7/24.
so? So it makes your life easier, I guess you would say. Okay. Is there anything else besides like cell phones? You can think out of the box for me. Yes.
My Xbox,
Your Xbox? Why can't you live without that?
because it's fun to play when I'm bored.
So to play it makes your life easier, release stress, right?
Yeah.
My fridge because it keeps my food good.
Good. That's the second time I've heard that. That's awesome, right?
I was
gonna say
my fridge. My clothes, I'm not walking around naked.
That's good. That's a good one. I like that. Yes.
The light bulb.
A light bulb makes your life easier
Yes.
and to change your life. Okay. Sports. You like that invention? Makes your life easier.
Yeah, well, it's like, cause like, I'm rather do that than sit on the couch.
You probably freak out on
Okay.
that.
Yes.
My alarm clock.
Your alarm clock. It makes. Why does it make your life easier?
So I can wake up for school.
Perfect. Okay, so think of like your life before you had these things, like your cell phone and things like that. So it changed your life when you got those things, when you got those inventions. True? All right. Keep that in mind. So we can all agree that technology and inventions, they change your life. They make things better, make things easier. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, while keeping that in mind, is we're going to look at some statistics that are from America in the 1800s to America in 1860. So we'll go ahead. Okay, and we're going to go through them and talk about them. All right, so here. All right, you can all see that pretty well? Okay, so the first one we have over here is population. What do you think happened from 1800 to 1860 to the population?
The slaves actually counted within the population.
Okay, so what do you think this number is going to be compared to this? Think it's going to go up or down? Up. Okay, so we can all agree on that. We'll see if you're right. Yes, it actually did go up by quite a lot, almost 25 million. And what do you think are some things that affected the population going up?
The slaves being counted.
Being slavery.
Somebody take a stab. How many, by raise of hand, how many million are represented by slaveries? Mr. Burton.
Oh, I thought you was talking about.
No, how many slaves are up there, you think?
3/5.
3/5? No, you're thinking about the 3/5 with counting slaves. How many total
A
slaves?
little bit more than half, at least.
It's really not that much. 26 million would be a ton. It's not half. What do you think?
I think there's more women than slaves.
Well, okay. Mr. Burton?
Probably like 4 million.
That's it. 4 million people, which I would have been like Miss Judd. I mean, had I been a little bit not younger, I would have thought that slaves made up at least proportionally half of the total population, but not so.
Okay, so the next one is, these are kind of abbreviated, so I'll explain them. The next one is the population that lived in urban areas. So what do you think that's going to be like compared to here?
Hundreds.
It's going to go up or down?
It's gonna start at hundreds.
All right. So it started out at 7% and it went to 20%, which is a huge jump. So why do you think that changed?
Because
Go ahead.
people were getting richer.
That might have a little bit to do with it.
Like whenever they had Western expansion, they found more land to.
That's part of it too.
Like the production of goods increased, so they were like industrializing more.
Right. That's good. That's great. Yes. So basically, the jobs went from being in rural areas, from where it was mostly farming. When industry came about, then everybody moved to cities, which is in urban areas, where all the jobs in the factories were. Good. All right. So the next one is this population of slaves. It went from 887,000 to about 1 million. So what do you think happened with that? Anyone take a stab? What changed? Yeah.
America was getting more industrialized, and we were becoming a better country, and our government was improving, so people were becoming motivated more to citizens.
Right, that has a lot to do with immigrants per year, which is the next one, because you can see that it went from 10,000 to 250,000 immigrants that were coming in per year.
I thought that was.
Yeah, so That's okay. But, and the slave population grew because as the industry grew, they needed more raw materials, so they needed more slave labor on the farms. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How everything's kind of connected?
Illegal.
What?
Didn't they abolish that?
They outlawed the slave trade, so we couldn't bring any more like new ones over, but people that were already in America, they could still be slaves. It's not completely illegal yet. So we're getting there though.
Yeah, but you're right. The 13th Amendment comes along 1865, which does ban slavery. Well done.
Okay. So, and then the next one is the percentage of population that were immigrants, and it went from 2 to 33,000, so which we saw that there was a lot more immigration. The value of manufacturing goods, that was a huge jump. And then I feel like that's kind of obvious, you know, that like there's a huge boom in industry, so you're going to have more manufactured goods, and you know, people are going to keep buying them. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. This is a big one because this is what we're going to be talking a lot about today. The number of patented inventions went from 4 to 4,000, almost 5,000. That's huge. So it was definitely a time of thinking and creating and everything like that. Yes?
This is just like a totally random question, but this is probably a stupid question I'm gonna ask anyway. Was the light bulb invented?
That wasn't till later. So, it's okay. There's no such thing as stupid questions. Just different minds. Okay. This is big too because just remember this because we'll get to this. The miles of railroad. You guys remember that they started building the railroads. We talked about that before. It went from 0 to 31,000. And then with the cotton production, they were able to produce a lot more, obviously. And then the number of hours that they spent per bale on labor went down. And we'll look at inventions that made everything easier and why this went down so much.
Is it because of the cotton gin?
Exactly right. We'll talk about it. All right. So you guys understand why all these were changed because new things were invented, right? So what I want you to think about, okay, I want you to think with your group, and we're going to do this PowerPoint, and as we go through, you guys can underline, circle, highlight, take notes, write questions that you have for me, and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. So just remember that. But first, what I want you guys to do, and you can write a little bit of this slide's not on there, so you can write it wherever. With your group, kind of, I want to know what you guys know already. So think about what you think the Industrial Revolution is, its effect on pre-Civil War society. So we're not quite to the Civil War yet. So how do you think it affected society beforehand? And what are some different inventions you've heard of that come out of the Industrial Revolution? I'll give you all a couple minutes to talk about it, and then we'll come back together.
So the Industrial Revolution, it helped us do things easier and quicker and more efficiently. And like some inventions
They made clothes from textiles.
yeah.
No talking at this table? What is the Industrial Revolution?
In factories.
Factories, good. How do you think it affected the pre-Civil War period? So up to the 1850s, 1860s. How does it change the landscape? Yeah, pre-Civil War.
Probably one of the reasons why the North won the war. They had so much supplies and stuff.
That's a curious thing, a curious thought.
Wait,
Huh.
no. Okay, we write this down.
What?
Okay, we're writing down, guys.
You can. You don't have to. It's on your mind. We'll talk about it. But if you want to keep it,
No, I'm just gonna bring me out here and look at my dad's truck though.
That's illegal.
No, it's not.
My grandma wants me to drive.
Alright. Give another minute or so, you guys can
Allie Richardson, Brandon Sister drives her young van around the school.
How does she?
This is Arna. She's 12. She can drive it, yeah.
Tyler pulls his dad's car out of the driveway and moves it so he can play out there. I was like,
yes. What is the
outlaw.
That's when I submitted to my dad. Can I drive a tractor?
There you go. I guess. Alright, I'll give you about 30 more seconds and we'll start sharing a little bit.
It looks very cool.
It's 4/11/11.
His eyes look creepy.
All right, you guys ready? All right, so what are some things that you came up with? What are some answers that you came up with? Anybody want to share? Yes.
Spitting Jenny.
Spitting Jenny, that's a good one. Yes.
It was just a lot more technology and like more. What's your answer?
Any of them. Just whatever you have, they're all of them.
We
Yeah.
said that the Industrial Revolution was a drastic change in technology, and it affected them because they needed a lot more people to work. And some of the things we came up with were the textile and the cotton.
That's good, that's good. Yeah,
A steamboat for the third one.
that's a good one. That's one that, yes.
Didn't they come up with like machines for making clothes? Like I don't know if it was the sewing machine yet, but the
Textile.
loom and stuff.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of different things, and we'll talk about all of them, but that's pretty good. And I really want to focus on this one because who was it that said something about the workers? Was it you? Okay, like if you think about it this way, there's obviously more industry, so they need more workers, more laborers. And do you think they like made a lot of money? You think it was like, no? Yeah. They didn't make a whole lot of money. It was like really low wages, but they needed more workers, so people fled to cities and everything. So that's really important to remember. So that's good. That's
Why would they want to go work for such little money?
what?
Cause that was the only like money.
That was basically the only thing they could. That's the only source of income they could find. It was really hard to find jobs. All right. So the word revolution means drastic change. So an industrial revolution means a drastic change in industry. You guys agree or disagree? Give me a thumbs up for agree. You agree? All right. All right. So the revolution caused a drastic shift of people from rural areas to cities, and that's because that's where all of the jobs were, in the factories and in the industry. Okay. Okay. This is what your textbook definition is. I usually don't really use them, but I like the one that your textbook had, and it said, gradually machines took the place of many hand tools. Much of the power once provided by people and horses began to be replaced, first by flowing water, then by steam engines. But there's a whole lot more to it. So we're going to kind of look at some of the things that changed the industrial process, that like caused the revolution and just made everything a lot easier. Okay. So first of all, as we've been talking about inventions in technology, I would think that technology and new inventions was the sole cause of the Industrial Revolution. You guys agree? Yes? All right. So you saw that how it changed the 1800s from 1800 to 1860. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So the first thing I want to bring up is factories and factory systems. Can anybody take a guess at what a factory system means?
Like people that work in factories?
That's pretty good. Yes.
Was it the, no, what was it called? The assembly line?
That's part of it. That's definitely part of it.
The different positions and groups.
Good. Those are all really good answers. Basically, it's just the factory system brought the machines used to make the materials and the people that make it together all in one place. Because it was before, it was like, you know, you had one person that was making one item all the time from their home, and they had to, it took a long time, and if you wanted to replace parts, they had to do it, you had to take it to them and they had to fix it. Whereas the factory system brought everything together and you worked certain hours, you weren't like doing jobs whenever all over the day. You worked certain hours from start to finish and you were working on everything. And it brought all of it together into a process. And the assembly line's a big part of that, to where they could start just making many, many things. Interchangeable parts, this is important too, because like I said before, where people were just specializing in one thing, they would have, if it broke, they had to take it to them and they had to remake that special part. Whereas now, where you have interchangeable parts, it makes it so that everything has the same part, so you can, if it breaks, you can just get a new part. You don't have to take it to the person to get fixed.
So what's an interchangeable part?
It's where, okay, before everybody was making one thing at a time, and it was specially made just that, whereas interchangeable parts are where everything's made with identical parts, and there's a lot of them, so that you can, if part breaks, you can get it replaced easily. instead of having to take it to somebody to get it fixed. Yes?
Did that help during the Civil War when they had like their weapons broke? They could always send them just like
Right,
next to the park.
exactly, yes. Mass production was also a big thing because then instead of making one little thing at a time, you could make tons and tons and tons, and you'd have plenty out on the market. Because remember when we talk about supply and demand, if there's a high demand for something, you gotta have a bigger supply, and that helped with supply a lot. Okay.
What's the relationship between a factory system, interchangeable parts, and mass production? Ms. Hess? Ms. Judd?
Factory system, well, there are a lot more people to work, and maybe if one part breaks, you get an interchangeable parts, which causes you to have mass production.
There you go, it's good. And that's what I was looking for, the cause and effect. So without maybe a factory system, you don't have mass production. Without interchangeable parts, Ms. Coxels, you don't have mass production. So cause and effect, Ms. Ramey. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna start looking at some of the inventions. So I wanna say that where the Industrial Revolution started was kind of in the textile industry, which you know what textiles are. They make clothes. There we go. So before it was that everybody just had to take one piece of clothing and they were sewing it together at a time. Well, now, before even this came along, there was the sewing machine that they invented. So that it made it go a lot faster. This is a water power loom. And remember how in the textbook definition it said about using water and steam? This is powered by water, and it makes all these little things crank, and it helps make clothes a lot faster. So this is just one of them. This is the spinning jenny, which I think this is interesting because you can see all the little spools of thread on here, and then the crank where you had to take it by hand and crank it. Once again, just something that made it a lot easier to create more textiles, produce everything a lot faster. This one is super important. So remember this one. This is the cotton gin by Eli Whitney. When we talk about this more on Monday, this invention came out of the South actually, and because that's where most of the cotton's produced, right? Right? No. Okay. Anyway, so how is cotton like? How do you get cotton? Where does it come from?
You pick
Pick it from a plant, right? And who usually picks this? Slaves. All right. So when you pick cotton and it's like rare form, yeah, you have to separate the seeds out. So basically what this did is instead of somebody taking their hand, like that tedious labor and picking it out one by one, this would actually separate the seeds from the cotton for you. So they would have to spend less time on that. They could produce more cotton, and all over again, like I keep saying, it makes it easier, more efficient, faster, everything. All right, so something else that was important just besides like the industrial process was transportation. So what are some things that you can think of that maybe would make transportation easier at this time? Yes.
Railroad tracks.
Yes, exactly. That's perfect. There's a couple other different things because we can't really have the railroad tracks without, or the railroads at all, or engines without one of the inventions we're going to look at. So basically, why do you think it would make the factory system better to have better transportation? Yes.
So you can get the supply out.
Right. Not only the supply, but yeah.
You can get your product out and the workers it makes more jobs because we have people that build the railroads.
Right.
Once they get the product out, they get money faster.
Right.
The railroad things, right?
You have to get the stuff to make the stuff
Right,
that you're making,
perfect.
and that's what
I was looking for. So it not only makes it easier, you can get your product out there, it makes it easier to bring materials in. So before you could do it, it was just harder, but now you can take your product even farther out and bring it even farther in. So that was it. Transportation was something that was extremely important that evolved. Okay, so we talked about the railroad already, and that's super important. And we saw in the statistics that we had that we went from 0 tracks to like, I think it was 31,000 miles of track, something like that. It was super important because that's a major way that people got their stuff, like back and forth.
We'll look at it more on Monday, but what region had the most tracks, do you think, the north or the south? Miss Powell?
It was like, kind of like wasn't it like the Arizona area? It was like where the
flat and have a brain fart.
Well, okay, so there were tracks out west, but predominantly the tracks were located in the eastern part. So is it north or south, Maisels?
Would it be north?
It was the north. The north on average had about 10,000 more miles of tracks than the south did. Yes, Miss Judd?
Why would the north need them if all the like stuff was coming from the south?
Miss Page answered? Because of manufacturing was booming in the north. Well done. Good.
Okay. All right, so this is the very important transportation engine. This is the steam engine. This is how
That's Mr. Burton's first car.
this is how basically you would get, it made trains a lot more efficient because I read somewhere that before they had the steam engine, a lot of like cars on railroad tracks would be actually drawn by horse. So I thought that was pretty cool because think about a poor horse having to go all the way back and forth for all that. But anyway, so the steam engine made it so that they could get things back and forth a lot faster. And I think, what was it, the trains could travel 25 to 30 miles an hour?
About 15 to 20 miles an hour
15 to 20
on
miles
average.
an hour on average, which today to us, that's not that fast, but back then, think about having a horse trotting along and then going to 15 to 20 miles an hour. So, you know, it's pretty important, yeah. Okay, this is the steamboat. This also used the steam engine, and this, like, why do you think this would be important to have a steamboat?
Because there's still water and you have to get coffee.
Right, it's just another form another way that we can transport items, buy, sell, things like that. Very good. Okay, so these are really important points that you need to remember. These are that the whole revolution pretty much brought about the expansion of transportation by what? How did transportation expand? Steamboats, steam engine, perfect. And then there are also improvements to the industrial process. What are some?
Mass production.
Mass production, that's good.
When did they like stop using steamboats and when they started using like coal and gas?
It's a little bit later.
Yeah, with the combustible engine. I
Yeah.
don't remember the exact date.
Like 1900s?
I think it was in the late 1890s. I'll check.
Yeah. All right.
So what were the other improvements in the industrial process?
Besides just the mass production.
Yes, Mr. Gregory?
It was quicker and more efficient.
Okay, specifically why?
Like the interchangeable parts.
Interchangeable parts, one.
People didn't have to work long hours because they used.
Actually, at this point, they were working lots and lots and lots of hours. No labor laws. But where were they working at? In factories, so factory systems. Very good.
Right, perfect.
How did they stimulate if they didn't have light bulbs?
They can.
That sounds like a
Yeah.
very ignorant question.
Wait, did we have sweatshops here in the US?
Yeah.
That's what essentially they were.
Okay.
Yeah, now they are, after labor laws.
So, all right, so this is what I want you guys to think about. What effect did the Industrial Revolution have on the workforce? What do you think? Like, just come up with some ideas. Yes.
Creating more jobs.
Yes, it created more jobs, that's true. Think about where people moved from, to and from. Yeah.
More people moved to the north because they had jobs there.
Right?
Wouldn't there be less farming because people moved to the cities to work?
Yes.
Less farming.
Yes,
Less
there was.
produce.
Yep, there's less farming.
Somebody make an argument that it actually would have a decreasing effect.
There was a lot more people in a small area, so there wasn't as many resources. And maybe since they, well, no, never mind, but yeah, there was like so much little space to so many people.
Okay, now think about the workforce itself. Somebody make the argument that the Industrial Revolution actually caused a compression or a decrease in workers.
Because the workplace was so
More
big.
people were going to the factory, so it was creating less farms and stuff.
Well, okay,
When people were working long hours in tight spaces, people were getting sick, so then they were.
maybe, but something else. What actually pushes the Industrial Revolution?
It was taking away, because they had engines and machines to do the work, so it was taking workers away.
Exactly. Now we have machines doing the work that once labor was doing.
Yeah.
Huh?
Now people barely work factories because they have those chemical arm-looking things.
Yep, that's good. All right then.
Perfect. All right, so, okay, this is what's gonna happen. I have my professors coming in to look at what you guys know.
Oh, no.
All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a brochure for presentation that we can show that, you know, I taught you what you know what you're doing, right? Okay, so you're gonna make a brochure. Everybody knows what a brochure looks like, right? Like this.
We're creating our own?
Yes. Each individually, you're gonna create your own. What I want you to have in it is that I want you to have like an introductory paragraph, almost like if you're writing a paper, and it's gonna be kind of informational about what the Industrial Revolution is and what changes it's making. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to pick what invention you thought was the most important. Now, I have a couple of them in here in your PowerPoint, but there's also a couple that are in your book, and there's stuff like the telegraph that's in there that might be really important. And that's totally based on opinion. But what I want to know why you think it's important. Why is it so important? And what did it do?
Did it have to be invented in that time period?
What? Yes, within the Industrial Revolution. Also include who invented it, and if you want to draw a picture, you can. You don't have to, but that would be great if you can include illustrations. And then the last thing that I want you to make sure you have on there is like, what effect did the invention have on its specific industry? So like, if you're choosing the cotton gin, how did it affect the cotton industry, right? And then also as on the Industrial Revolution as a whole. So if you're taking the cotton gin, how did it make everything easier? You know what I'm saying? Does it make sense, you guys? All right, I have an example that's not really, you know, whatever. There's nothing really written on it, just a layout, and I'll pass it around. These are the resources you can use. You can use the textbooks that are back there. You can use the internet or any devices you have to Google more information if you want to look at more information, maybe put more interesting things, and then any notes you took today. On the back also, I have where if you use either your textbook or the internet, I want you to write what like where you found it in the textbook, like what page, and then also what websites you use. You don't have to like use the whole like long, you know, URL, but just what website you found off generally. Does that make sense? Is that good?
Can we print off a picture?
Yeah, because if you want to work on it this weekend and bring it back on Monday, that's perfectly fine with me. Because we're going to do a little kind of exit slip. We're going to stop a couple minutes early and do that. So we're going to go ahead and get started on these. So I'm going to pass out the paper and think in mind like what invention maybe you think you want to use. And if you want to get a book and see what other ones are, you can.
OMG.
Pass it around. Yeah, look at it and pass it around.
It's just a cell that makes us do
I
it.
know most about what's in it.
Who is?
Teacher and I
Yeah, this is on your own. Each of you pick your own. But you guys, if you guys are picking the same invention as somebody, you can ask each other for advice and share information. But just make sure you're working on your own brochure. Okay?
railroads
Yeah.
That's what I need.
That's a meeting.
You got some more?
Yeah.
I'm just joking with you.
What are you doing?
If you guys want to color it, you can. It can be black and white. Make it what you want.
You're kidding, I'm like,
It starts on 382. 382 is where it starts.
This will be very helpful.
I know.
They have different Word docs too.
You guys got paper already? Yeah. Everybody's got paper? Everybody good? All right.
Mine's probably. Mine's not mine.
why is that?
What do we do? I forgot how to phone these. You have to. We don't have to. You do? Why? Finish it. Oh, well, I'm gonna do that one thing for very first second. You probably have to read this wrong. No. That's good enough.
Somehow I did it right.
You have to like,
before you fold it, you have to like kind of, like not fold it all the way.